My name is Tamio Nakamura. I'm from Waseda University, Tokyo, Japan. I taught at San Salvador for the term of spring 2014. I taught two courses. One is for comparing regionalism, and the other for teaching the development of European Union law. My great experience here are 2 points. One, I had a group of international students with Europeans and Asians. So the class was very diverse in the academic training, and we had very lively discussions sometimes, representing some of the differences of teaching method they had. For example, the European students were very happy to discuss almost every topic, whereas Asian students tend to be really silent at first because their teaching methodology is on the lecture basis, so they were not ready to start discussion. But later on, as classes went by, Asian students became active as well. The second thing I found great here was to experience some sort of, different methodology of teaching as well. So I tried to develop a new methodology for me to discuss in two-way system in class. So for me it was challenging too. Not just students were diverse, but also I developed my new teaching methodology of two-way discussions. So I'd like to apply my experience in Tokyo as well when I will be back. Venice International University, I think they have a lot of merits, especially studying here would be fruitful and with all rewards for the students coming from various parts of the world. As for Asian students, for example, they can experience on their own daily lives the different perspectives, that is, the European perspectives of the world affairs. So they would discover a lot of new thinking, new way of looking at things, and new way of thinking and philosophies. Another advantage is to, struggle the new way of learning as well. Writing is the most crucial part for the Asian students. Because it is based on English teaching, they have to struggle with English essays, and most of the Asian students found this really challenging and tough. But in the end, when they finish writing, the satisfaction out of it is such a great degree that they wanted to continue as well. On the one hand, Venice is quite, enticing and very attractive to non-academic activities as well. But Venice itself has an international aspect of its own. So you can think of and find a lot of interesting international challenging problems. For example, Venice now has the tourism issues. Some of the tourists are coming by the very large passenger boats, and whether to allow that passenger boat to pass the Giudecca Canal or not is a great issue, for example. It is partly the environmental issue, but partly the tourism policy issue as well. So to have such a kind of policy in discussion would be quite revealing and interesting. I'd like many other students to come and enjoy their lives here and of course many professors as well to come here and teach their own research results and have a great time here. Thank you.
My name is Amnon Bar Or, and I'm coming from Venice University in Israel. I'm an architect, archaeologist, and an architect of conservation. My two courses with VIU were conservation in the Holy Land and between East and West, the influence of mandatory architecture in Palestine and the state of Israel. I had a great experience here in Venice, mainly in this University of the VIU, which gave me the opportunity to meet students from and teachers from so many places. Never had Japanese students, never had Austrian students, and it was an experience sharing my knowledge with them, but then having some knowledge that they brought to class, and they taught me their experience, mainly concerning conservation in their countries. Well, conservation for me is all about memory and about what we would like to remember and what we would like to forget. So the class was about sharing ideas with the examples of Palestine and Israel, but mainly sharing the ideas with my students about their hometowns and their culture. So I got many perspectives, many points of view, and found myself more learning in this university than teaching. Venice, for me itself, is a university, is a laboratory, which I can experience so many things I cannot experience at home, even though we have very similar issues. But the setting of Venice, coming to the university with a boat, going back home with a boat, traveling around Venice with a boat, makes it really feeling of, I would say, medieval city, medieval life, where you don't have cars, you don't have the noise of the cars, the pollution of the cars, and makes you really a good contact with the people in the street, because the alleys are so straight, so you cannot manage walking without touching people, without looking them very near in the face. My main concern in the course, in both courses, and my main personal concern was what would be the future of Venice. And we were dealing a lot in the class about the future of Venice, concerning mainly architecture and conservation. I found this situation, which is very difficult and very, for me, unique. A place that has so many tourists on one hand and has to keep its building, its environment as it was like 400 or 600 years ago. In a way, tourists for me, they bring life to Venice now, not the Venetians, because there are almost no Venetians here, as I found it. Real people is people that have nothing to do with tourism, but there are so few, and it became like an experience of staying in a city which most of its inhabitants left, and in a way, it's very intriguing and very interesting for me to go on and continue the research about the future of this place. And I think the International University of Venice has to enhance this subject and get more into this topic of tourism, cultural tourism. What does it mean for Venice? What does it mean for the future of Venice? In order to learn and to get some of the results of the students' research and of course the professors' research on this topic, which for me was the main one and the most important one. I am going to take the opportunity to go to the Architecture Biennale and learn about the international experience in architecture of nowadays. Then there are so many places I haven't seen. I haven't time to go and see, mainly the islands, and I want to see as much as possible and to have the experience of staying in Venice, not working, but just being one of those 25 million tourists, just to play a little bit as a tourist, try to see it from their own point of view. And I'm sure it's going to be very interesting. Thanks International University of Venice of inviting me here. Had a great time, I really enjoyed it, and I really do hope to come back. Thank you.
My name is Francesca Coin. I teach at Foscari University Neoliberal Policies, and I was teaching intercultural communication last semester, spring 2014 at VIU. And it was beautiful to see the interactions among the students, and the one thing that I love about VIU is that it's a very informal context. It's not simply informal, it's also very intense in terms of relationships and the learning aspect. So it was a pleasure. I had mostly female students, but the relationship that we had changed the way in which we taught and learned very much. From the way in which, for example, I teach in Foscari University, where it's a little bit more formal and where eventually we do not become objects and subjects at the same time, objects of what we study. I think they should come. I'm not sure if they should come because I teach the class or because the environment shapes the class in such a different way, and the students there shape the class in such a different way. It's the students that make the class. I just give them the opportunity to be less, I just try and make my presence less authoritarian as possible, to make it very horizontal in a way. So I think it'd be important to come to VIU at least for one semester, because for one thing you learn different teaching styles, and my teaching style does change in VIU. But also you teach how other nationalities, how other students, how other individuals learn and share their knowledge. There's a level of sharing that's much more broad and honest than in other university where you use the frontal lecture more. So it's a very beautiful learning experience from all standpoints. So I would definitely recommend it to Italian students and to my students as well. So it was my second time teaching at VIU, at Venice International University, and it's always very exciting to be there. And it was so both semesters that I taught. This time and even last time I had 24, 25 students from so many nationalities. There were Japanese students, German students, from Hungary, from the United States, from Israel, so from all over the world. I was lucky enough to teach a class that has to do with communication and culture. And in that sense, the goal for us was to place ourselves in the context of the country we were born and eventually raised in, and then to figure out how our subjectivity was shaped by the national context that we were raised in, but also to sort of try and reinvent ourselves and our relationships after having studied the social context. This year, the goal or the attempt was to deconstruct each concept and to place it within each national concept and then to rethink it. So one thing was to rethink the notion of money, for example, and so to figure out how we tend to put our lives to value and work as fast as we can, and instead what we could do to actually rethink our relationship to money and the materiality of life, and how, for example, we could think of a life where value is produced out of contemplation or relationships or rest or studying or learning or just living slowly. And we did the same thing with each aspect. We tried to figure out how our nation builds the way in which we think about love, about relationships, about violence, because violence is a very sophisticated concept in a way. It can be visible, but it can even be something that has more to do even with silence or even with the way in which we relate to one another. But there are always sort of, there are friendships that happen, so tight relationships that grow throughout the semester. And I miss her actually, because one of the professors this semester taught a class in gender and theory that had many theoretical connections to my course, and we had a very similar teaching style. So it's good to build relationships and to find connections that are theoretical but personal as well. I've already given an advice to Italian students, so I would give it to international students to just come and let it happen. So as much as possible, let go of performance or the need to succeed, and just let go of this and just experience the place and the relationships that happen there and the spontaneity of the place as well.